The days that followed the sheriff's visit were filled with a nervous kind of energy. Lily could feel the tension in the air, like a storm waiting to break. Every step she took felt heavier, every decision more important. Garson's men were closing in on her, making their presence known in every corner of town. It was as if the walls were closing in, and the safety she had once taken for granted was slipping through her fingers. But through it all, there was Wyatt. He was more determined than ever, more present and more focused. He had become not just a friend, not just a helper, but someone Lily felt she could rely on. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't facing the world alone. Wyatt had promised they would fight back. And even though the situation seemed hopeless at times, Lily found herself believing in his words. They weren't just a pair of strangers anymore, fighting a battle they had no chance of winning. No, they were a team. And together, they had a chance. As the days passed, Wyatt's plan to stop Garson from taking the store began to take shape. He had been working tirelessly, gathering information and making connections with people who could help them. Lily didn't fully understand the details of everything he was doing, but she trusted him. That was enough. One afternoon, as Lily was sorting through some old receipts in the back room of the store, she heard the familiar sound of the doorbell ringing. It was Wyatt stepping in with his usual quiet confidence. But this time there was something different in his demeanor. He had a glint in his eye, something that told her that the moment they had been waiting for was finally here. "I've got good news," Wyatt said, his voice full of quiet excitement. Lily stood up, her heart racing. "What's going on?" she asked, her breath catching in her throat. She had a feeling she knew what was coming, but she was afraid to hope. Wyatt smiled, a rare, genuine smile that made his whole face light up. "We've got the information we need. We know what Garson is planning, and we've got the leverage to stop him." Lily couldn't help but feel a surge of relief. For the first time in days, a weight seemed to lift from her shoulders. There was hope again. "They weren't going to lose, are you sure?" she asked, still a little cautious, still unsure that everything could fall into place the way Wyatt believed it would. Wyatt nodded. "I'm sure. We've got proof that Garson's been using underhanded tactics to get people to sell their land. There are a few people around here who were too afraid to speak up before, but now they're ready to stand with us." Lily's heart skipped a beat. "You mean we're not alone in this?" Wyatt placed a hand on her shoulder, his gaze steady. "Not at all. There are others who want to see Garson taken down. We've got a real chance to turn this around." Over the next few days, everything started moving quickly. Wyatt and Lily contacted the people who were willing to stand up to Garson, and they organized a plan. They would meet with the town's lawyer, present their evidence, and make it clear that Garson's methods were not just illegal, they were harmful to the entire town. But it wasn't just about the store anymore. It was about the people of the town standing together, about reclaiming the sense of community that Garson had tried to destroy with his greed. The day of the meeting arrived, and Lily could hardly contain her nerves. She had spent so long fighting this battle on her own, but now, with Wyatt and the support of the townspeople behind her, it felt different. She wasn't just fighting for her store anymore. She was fighting for the future of the town, for everything her father had built, and for the people who had supported her through it all. Wyatt was by her side. As always, his calm and steady presence grounding her in the midst of the storm. He was the first one to speak when they gathered in the lawyer's office. He didn't need to say much. His words were simple but powerful. "We have proof of Garson's manipulation," Wyatt said, his voice steady and clear. "We have people who are willing to testify. We won't let him buy our town and push people out for his own gain." The lawyer, a kind man with a sharp mind, looked over the evidence Wyatt had gathered. After a few moments of silence, he nodded. "This is enough," he said. "We can take this to court." Lily felt a rush of relief wash over her. It wasn't over yet, but for the first time, it felt like they had a real chance. The next few weeks were filled with meetings, preparations, and tense moments as they waited for the court date. The pressure was building, but Lily refused to back down. Every time she looked at Wyatt, she knew they were doing the right thing. He had stood by her from the beginning, even when things seemed hopeless. Now it was her turn to stand by him. The court day arrived, and the town gathered in the small courthouse waiting for the verdict. Garson was there too, sitting with his lawyers, looking smug and confident. He thought he had already won. But Lily and Wyatt knew they had something he didn't: the truth. The trial was long and stressful, but in the end, the evidence spoke for itself. Garson had used illegal tactics to force people to sell their land, and the court found in favor of the townspeople. The store, Lily's store, was officially hers to keep. Garson's plans were stopped, and he was ordered to pay fines for his actions. It was a victory not just for Lily, but for the entire town. As the courtroom buzzed with excitement and relief, Lily turned to Wyatt, her eyes wide with disbelief. "We did it," she whispered, her voice shaking with emotion. Wyatt smiled, his face softening. "We did it, Lily. Together." They walked out of the courthouse together, side by side, as the sun began to set. The town was safe, and her father's legacy had been protected. But more than that, Lily had finally learned to trust. She had learned that while strength and independence were important, there was nothing wrong with accepting help, especially from someone who truly cared. As they walked back to the store, hand in hand, Lily felt something inside her shift. For the first time in years, she felt whole again. She wasn't alone anymore. And with Wyatt by her side, she knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. Lily's store wasn't just a business anymore. It was a symbol of hope, of resilience, and of the power of trust. And as she looked over at Wyatt, she knew that they had just begun a new chapter in their story, one they would write together. The days that followed were some of the most intense Lily had ever faced. What had started as a quiet life in her small town had turned into a battle for everything she held dear. The news of Garson's plan to take over her store spread through the town like wildfire, and soon everyone seemed to have an opinion on what she should do. Some told her to sell, to take the money and run. Others insisted that there was no way to win against someone as powerful as Garson. But Lily wasn't one to give up easily, and she wasn't ready to walk away from the only thing that had ever felt like home. She had Wyatt now, and while she still didn't fully trust him, he had proven time and again that he wasn't just another drifter. He was different. When he said he would help her fight back, she believed him. But as the days wore on, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that they were outmatched. Garson had money, connections, and influence. All they had was a few people who were willing to stand with them, and a plan that felt like it might not be enough. One morning, Wyatt came to the store with a serious look on his face. Lily could tell something was different. He wasn't wearing his usual relaxed demeanor. There was no teasing or small talk, just the focused, determined man she had come to know over the past few weeks. "Lily, we need to talk," he said, stepping into the store and pulling the door shut behind him. Lily felt a knot form in her stomach. "What's going on?" Wyatt took a deep breath, his brow furrowed. "I've been looking into Garson's plans more closely. I've got some connections who can help us, but we need to be careful. This is bigger than I thought." Lily's heart raced as she stepped closer to him. "What do you mean? What's bigger than we thought?" "Garson has more control over this town than I realized," Wyatt said, his voice low. "He's not just buying up properties. He's manipulating people, making sure no one stands in his way. He has the local sheriff on his side along with a few other powerful people." Lily felt the blood drain from her face. She knew Garson had influence, but she hadn't realized just how deep his reach went. "So you think we can't stop him?" Wyatt shook his head, his gaze hardening. "No, that's not what I'm saying. We can still fight, but it's going to take more than just a few good people. We're going to have to push harder than ever before." Lily stood still for a moment, the weight of his words settling on her shoulders. She had known that Garson was dangerous, but she hadn't understood the full extent of it. But there was something in Wyatt's eyes, a fire, a promise, that made her feel like they could win. He wasn't giving up, and for the first time in a long while, neither was she. "We need to act fast," Wyatt continued. "Garson's men are planning something big, and if we don't move soon, it'll be too late." Lily nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. "What do we do first?" Wyatt smiled faintly. "First, we gather information. I've got a few people who owe me favors. We'll find out exactly what Garson's up to, and then we'll strike. But we need to stay under the radar for now. We can't afford to make any mistakes." The next few days were filled with secret meetings and quiet planning. Wyatt's connections weren't just in the town. They stretched far beyond, into neighboring areas where Garson's influence was weaker. Through whispers and promises of favors owed, Wyatt managed to gather bits and pieces of information that painted a clearer picture of Garson's intentions. But the more they learned, the more dangerous it became. Garson wasn't just after the store. He wanted to take control of the entire town. He had plans to build a shopping center on the land. And if Lily's store stood in the way, he would tear it down without a second thought. As Wyatt and Lily pieced together their strategy, they faced obstacle after obstacle. Garson's men were everywhere, watching and waiting. It wasn't just about saving the store anymore. It was about protecting everything Lily had worked so hard for. One evening, as they sat at the back of the store poring over the latest information Wyatt had gathered, Lily felt the weight of the situation settle heavily on her. They were running out of time. They had to act quickly, but every move they made felt like it might be their last. "I don't know if I can do this, Wyatt," Lily said quietly, looking at the papers spread out in front of her. "I don't know if we can win." Wyatt looked at her, his expression softening. "You've already done more than you think. You've fought to keep your store. You've fought to protect what's yours. And you're not alone in this. I'm here and I'm not going anywhere." Lily felt a flicker of warmth in her chest. There was truth in his words, and she didn't want to admit how much she had come to depend on him. She had spent so much of her life doing everything alone, trying to keep the store running, dealing with the pain of losing her father, and facing the world on her own terms. But now, with Wyatt by her side, everything felt different. "I don't want to lose this," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't want to lose my father's legacy." "You won't," Wyatt said firmly. "I promise you. We're going to fight for this together." But the fight wasn't going to be easy. As the days passed, Garson's tactics became more aggressive. His men began showing up at the store more often, making threats, trying to intimidate Lily into selling. Every time they came, Wyatt was there, always in the background watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. But the pressure was building. Lily could feel the tension rising. She wasn't sure how much longer they could hold out. Then one afternoon, everything seemed to come to a head. The sheriff, who had always seemed like a neutral figure in the town, came to the store. He wasn't there to offer help, though. He was there on Garson's orders. "You've got to go, Lily," the sheriff said gruffly as he stepped into the store, his badge glinting in the sunlight. "Garson's people have made it clear. You're out of time." Lily's heart skipped a beat. She had never been afraid of the sheriff before, but there was something in his eyes now, a coldness she hadn't seen before. She felt the weight of the situation settle on her shoulders like a heavy stone. This wasn't just a fight for her store anymore. This was a fight for everything. "I'm not going anywhere," Lily said, her voice stronger than she felt. "And neither is my store." The sheriff shook his head, his expression hardening. "You'll regret this." With those words, he turned and walked out. But Lily could see the warning in his eyes. Garson wasn't playing games anymore. Things were about to get much more dangerous. As the door closed behind him, Wyatt stepped into the room, his face grim. He didn't say anything at first, but Lily could see the wheels turning in his mind. He wasn't ready to back down either. They had both come too far to lose now. "We'll find a way to win," Wyatt said quietly, his hand resting on her shoulder. "We're not giving up." And in that moment, Lily finally understood. Trust wasn't just about believing in someone else. It was about believing in yourself. She had spent so many years doubting herself, doubting her ability to protect the things she loved. But with Wyatt beside her, she wasn't afraid anymore. Together, they could face whatever came next. Lily's days continued as usual. The small-town life, though quiet and predictable, had started to feel a little less lonely. Wyatt's visits had become more frequent, and with every day that passed, Lily found herself slowly letting down the walls she'd carefully built around her heart. She wasn't sure why, but something about him made her feel safer, more at ease. He wasn't like the others who had come and gone through her life. He didn't ask for anything in return, didn't expect her to open up all at once. He simply helped quietly and without expectation. But just when things began to feel comfortable, something changed. It was early one morning when Lily first heard the commotion outside her shop. The usual quiet streets were filled with voices, and the air seemed thick with tension. She stepped outside, squinting against the bright sunlight. A large wagon had parked in front of her store, and a group of men were unloading heavy crates. They were strangers, men she'd never seen before, their faces hard and unfriendly. "What's going on?" Lily called out, her voice carrying through the quiet town square. One of the men, a tall figure with a thick mustache, turned to her with a sneer. "I'm here on behalf of Mr. Garson," he said, his tone dismissive. He's purchased your store. Time for you to pack up and leave. Lily felt a cold wave of panic wash over her. What are you talking about? I haven't sold my store to anyone. The man didn't respond right away, only giving her a long, calculating look. Mr. Garson has made an offer you can't refuse, he said, a smirk playing on his lips. He's the new owner now. You've got until the end of the week to clear out. Lily's heart raced as she tried to process what he was saying. Garson? She had heard of him, a wealthy businessman from a neighboring town, known for buying up properties and pushing people out. He was the type who didn't care for small businesses or the lives of the people behind them. He only cared about money, power, and expansion. This is my store, Lily exclaimed, feeling the heat rise in her cheeks. It's not for sale. The man shrugged, clearly uninterested in her protests. Take it up with Garson, but either way, it's his now. You've got a week. With that, he turned and went back to directing the other men, who were stacking crates and making plans to start renovating. Lily stood frozen for a moment, her mind racing. She couldn't lose the store. It was all she had left of her father. Without it, she didn't know what she'd do. Her hands trembled as she stepped back inside, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. How could this be happening? How had Garson even known about her store? What was she going to do? Just then, the door creaked open and Wyatt stepped inside. He had been coming by more often lately, checking in on her, offering help where he could. He must have noticed the look on her face because without a word, he closed the door behind him and came over to her. What happened? He asked, his voice soft but full of concern. Lily swallowed hard. They're taking my store. A man from Garson's company just told me I have a week to get out. Wyatt's expression hardened. Garson? He muttered under his breath. That man's trouble. He's been buying up land around here for years, pushing people out. Lily nodded, the panic building in her chest. I can't just leave. This store is all I have left. It was my father's, and I've worked hard to keep it going. Wyatt's eyes softened as he watched her. I know you've worked hard, but you're not alone in this. We can figure out a way to fight this. Lily shook her head, not fully believing him. What can we do? He has money, power, everything. I'm just a woman trying to keep a small store running. There's no way I can stand up to him. Wyatt stepped closer to her, his presence calming. I don't know Garson, but I know people who do. People who can help. I might not have the wealth or power he has, but I know how to deal with men like him. Lily looked up at him, a spark of hope flickering in her chest. She had always prided herself on being independent, but this was beyond anything she could handle alone. She wasn't sure if she could trust Wyatt completely, but she knew he wasn't like the others who had come and gone from her life. He wasn't offering empty promises. He was offering his help, and that was something she couldn't ignore. What do we need to do? She asked, her voice quieter now, the panic slowly being replaced with determination. Wyatt gave her a reassuring smile. First, we need to find out exactly what Garson's plans are. He won't get away with this without a fight. That afternoon, Wyatt went to work. He didn't say much about his plans, but Lily could tell that he was serious. His quiet confidence gave her a sense of calm, even if she still wasn't sure how they would manage to stop Garson's plans. Over the next few days, things became even more tense. Men from Garson's company continued to show up, taking measurements and making renovations to the store. Lily tried to push through it, keeping up with her daily routines, but she couldn't shake the feeling that everything was slipping through her fingers. Then, Wyatt came back one afternoon, looking even more focused than usual. I've got some information, he said, his voice low as he stepped into the back room where Lily was working. Lily looked up, her heart racing. What did you find out? I spoke to some people, Wyatt said. Turns out Garson's not as untouchable as he likes to think. He's got a lot of connections, but not all of them are friendly. He's made a lot of enemies, and some of them are willing to help us. Lily stared at him, her breath catching in her throat. You think we have a chance? Wyatt's blue eyes met hers, filled with a quiet strength. We do. We just need to stay focused. If we can get the right information, we can turn this around. It was the first time Lily had felt a glimmer of real hope in days. Maybe Wyatt was right. Maybe they could fight back. She didn't know exactly how they would do it, but with Wyatt by her side, she felt like there was a chance. She wasn't alone anymore. As they began making plans to confront Garson's people, Lily's mind raced with possibilities. She had no idea what the next few days would bring, but she knew one thing for sure. This was no longer just about saving her father's store. It was about standing up for herself and fighting for the future she deserved. With Wyatt's help, Lily felt like she finally had a chance to fight back. She wasn't going to lose the store without a fight. Not again. The next few days passed quietly, as they always did in the small town. The streets were mostly empty, and Lily's store seemed to attract only the usual faces. The same handful of regulars who came in for milk, eggs, or a loaf of bread. Life had a rhythm here, slow and steady. There was something comforting about it, even if it sometimes felt like the world was moving on without her. But then, just as the sun began to rise each morning, something shifted. Wyatt, the cowboy, was back. This time he didn't just walk in with the usual request for supplies. No, this time he came in with a quiet determination that caught Lily's attention. It was early, and Lily had just begun stocking the shelves when she saw him push the door open again. He was dressed in the same faded jeans and a long, worn jacket, his boots softly thudding against the floorboards. But this time his eyes were different. They weren't guarded, nor did they hold that distant sadness from when she first met him. Now there was something more, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. He nodded at her as he stepped inside, tipping his hat in a brief greeting. Lily felt her heartbeat quicken, though she tried to ignore it. He was just another cowboy passing through. Nothing more. That's what she told herself. "Morning," he said with a slight smile, his deep voice carrying through the stillness of the store. "I've been thinking about what you said the other day, about helping around here. I figured maybe I could be useful after all." Lily raised an eyebrow. "Help," she repeated, her tone neutral but curious. "What do you mean?" Wyatt's gaze shifted to the shelves behind her, then back to her. "Well, looks like you've got a lot to handle on your own here. I noticed you've been working late, staying up long hours. Thought I might lend a hand, maybe with the deliveries or the stock. Just don't want you to work yourself too hard." Lily blinked in surprise. She wasn't used to anyone offering help, let alone someone like Wyatt. In this small town, people generally minded their own business. They'd say a few words when they passed by, but when it came to real help, most people kept to themselves. She didn't know why, but something about his offer seemed genuine. There was no rush in his voice, no sense of expectation. He was simply offering his help, no strings attached. "I don't need any help," Lily said at first, but there was a softness in her words that betrayed her true feelings. It wasn't that she didn't appreciate his offer. It was just that she wasn't used to depending on anyone else. Wyatt didn't push her. He simply gave a small nod. "I understand, but I'll be around just in case you change your mind." For the next few days, Wyatt continued to show up. He wasn't in her face, but somehow he was always there when she needed him. One afternoon, the delivery truck arrived, bringing more supplies than Lily could manage on her own. As the truck driver unloaded the heavy crates, Lily realized that she was struggling to carry it all. That's when Wyatt appeared again, stepping up without a word and lifting one of the heavy crates with ease. "Let me help you with that," he said, his voice calm and steady. Lily watched him for a moment, her arms aching from the effort of lifting the smaller boxes. She hesitated, unsure of whether to accept his help or to continue pushing through it on her own. But there was no arrogance in Wyatt's movements, no sense of superiority. He didn't look at her as if she were weaker or incapable. He just quietly stepped in to help, like it was the most natural thing in the world. After that, the days began to pass with a strange rhythm. Wyatt would show up, help her with the heavy lifting, or offer to carry her bags of grain to the store's back storage. Sometimes he'd hang around the porch, keeping an eye on things while Lily worked. It was never anything too dramatic, just small acts of kindness that made a difference. And over time, Lily couldn't deny that she was beginning to feel something, a slow, cautious sense of trust. She couldn't explain it. After all, Wyatt was still a stranger, wasn't he? But each time he walked into her store, he felt less like an outsider and more like someone who belonged. There was no pressure, no rush, no game to be played. He didn't try to impress her with grand gestures or big promises. He simply showed up and helped when he could. One evening, as the sun dipped low, casting an orange glow across the dusty streets, Wyatt stayed a little longer than usual. The store was quiet, the kind of evening where most people were inside, winding down after the long day. The door creaked open, and in walked Wyatt, this time carrying a small bundle of firewood. "Thought you might need this," he said with a grin, setting the bundle down near the stove. Lily couldn't help but smile back. "You really don't have to do this," she said, though she felt a warmth spread through her chest. "I can manage just fine." Wyatt's smile faded slightly, but there was no offense taken. "I know you can," he said, looking out the window. "But it never hurts to make things a little easier on someone, especially when they're doing it all on their own." There was something in his words that struck Lily more deeply than she cared to admit. She hadn't realized how much she had been carrying on her own, how many little burdens she'd been holding inside. Her father's death had left her to shoulder not just the store, but the responsibility of everything that came with it, and while she tried to be strong, there were moments when she wished for someone to share the load. "I don't need anyone to feel sorry for me," she said quickly, as if to defend herself, though she wasn't sure why. "I'm not asking for help." Wyatt didn't seem bothered by her words. He just looked at her quietly, the expression on his face softening. "I don't feel sorry for you, Lily," he said gently. "I just know what it's like to carry the weight of everything alone. I've been there." There was something in his voice, a quiet honesty that made her stop and really look at him. For the first time, she realized that Wyatt wasn't just a drifter. He was someone who understood what it meant to be weighed down by the world, to be lost in the struggle. And somehow he had found his way to her. They sat in silence for a while, the only sound the crackling of the stove and the soft hum of the evening wind outside. For the first time in a long while, Lily felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she had thought. The next few days passed, and though Lily tried to keep her distance, she couldn't ignore the feeling that something was shifting between them. Wyatt's presence became less of a surprise and more of a comfort. His visits were no longer just about help. They were moments of connection. They didn't talk much, but there was something in the air when he was around. A quiet understanding that she had never expected to find with someone like him. One afternoon, as Lily was sorting through the store's receipts, Wyatt appeared in the doorway again, his hat tipped low as usual. But this time, instead of immediately offering to help, he leaned against the doorframe, watching her for a moment before speaking. "You know," he said slowly, "I've been here a while now and I've seen you work hard every day. I can tell you've got a lot on your shoulders, more than anyone should have to carry alone. But I also know something else. You don't ask for help. You never have." Lily looked up at him, surprised by the directness of his words. She opened her mouth to say something, but found she didn't know what. Was he trying to make her feel weak? Or was he simply stating the truth? "I'm not saying you need help," Wyatt continued, "but I am saying that if you ever do, I'll be here." For the first time, Lily didn't feel insulted. There was no pity in his words, only quiet assurance. And for the first time, she found herself believing that maybe, just maybe, she could trust him. Lily had always been someone who preferred the quiet rhythm of small-town life. She had spent her entire childhood in the same dusty old town, helping her father run the general store. The town wasn't large, and everyone knew everyone's business. People here lived simple lives with the same old faces around every corner. Lily's world had always felt safe and predictable, but after her father passed away, it began to feel different. It became quieter, emptier, and far more lonely. As the sun began to dip below the hills, casting a warm golden light across the land, Lily wiped her hands on her apron and looked around the familiar little store. The wooden shelves were stocked with the usual necessities: flour, sugar, canned goods, and some local honey. But lately business had been slow. Her father's death had left a hole not just in the town but in Lily's life as well. She found herself staring at the door every time it creaked open, hoping someone would walk in. But most days, the store stayed empty for hours. Lily didn't mind being independent. In fact, she was proud of it. She had always been the one to keep things together, from the store to the house to the land that her father left behind. But there was a part of her that missed the old days, when she was a little girl, laughing as her father told stories about the wild days when he was younger. Now those stories were just memories, and the shop had become her life. It was on one of those long, quiet afternoons when a stranger appeared. Lily had been stacking cans on a low shelf when she heard the unmistakable sound of hooves approaching the front of the store. The bell above the door jingled, and in walked a tall man, his face hidden under the brim of a wide cowboy hat. His boots scraped against the wooden floor as he stepped inside, casting a long shadow across the dusty shelves. Lily paused for a moment, her eyes scanning him carefully. He looked like any other cowboy who passed through town, rugged, tired, and worn from life on the road. He had a scruffy beard and dark, weathered skin, as if he had spent years under the harsh sun. His eyes were hidden beneath the shadow of his hat, but there was something about him that felt different. He wasn't like the other drifters who came and went, those who just asked for directions and a meal before vanishing. This man didn't say a word at first, just stood there, looking around the store as if he were trying to decide what to do next. Lily watched him closely, her arms crossed over her chest. She had dealt with enough travelers to know that most of them didn't stick around. They came, asked for a few supplies, and left, vanishing just as quickly as they appeared. But something about this man made her uneasy. She wasn't used to strangers, especially ones who looked like they had a story buried behind those quiet eyes. Finally, he spoke, his voice deep and rough, like gravel being dragged across the ground. "Need a place to rest my horse." Lily nodded toward the back of the store, where a small yard behind the building could accommodate a few horses. "You can leave him there," she said, her voice cold, careful. "But I don't have much more than food and supplies to offer." The man hesitated, glancing down at her for the first time. His eyes, a piercing shade of blue, met hers, and for just a moment she felt a strange pull, as if he could see through her, into something deep inside her. But it was only a moment, and the next thing she knew, he was turning toward the door. "I won't be long," he said quietly, almost as if speaking to himself. Lily watched him walk outside, his boots thudding softly against the ground. She shook her head, trying to push the odd feeling aside. He was just another drifter. They came and went. It was what they did. But as the hours ticked by, something about him lingered in her mind. There was a quiet strength in the way he moved, something purposeful about him. She had seen plenty of drifters pass through, but none of them had ever looked like this. Most were loud, or at least more open. This man, he was different. There was a quiet sadness in his eyes, as though he carried a weight that most people could never understand. It wasn't just the exhaustion of a long ride that wore on him. No, this man seemed as though he was running from something, or maybe running to something, though he didn't seem like the type to chase after anything. As the evening wore on, Lily tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept drifting back to him. When the door swung open again, she looked up to see him standing there once more, this time with his hands resting casually on the wooden counter. He hadn't been gone for long, and he didn't seem like he had any specific reason for coming back, other than to look around. "Could I get some bread and meat?" he asked, his voice a bit softer this time. Lily's eyes narrowed slightly, but she didn't want to seem rude. She was used to customers after all, no matter how odd they were. She went to the counter and pulled out the best bread she had, along with some dried meat. As she wrapped the goods up for him, she noticed him watching her closely, as though he were waiting for something. "There's something familiar about you," he said, almost to himself, his voice thoughtful. Lily froze for a moment, feeling a shiver run down her spine. She wasn't sure if he was speaking to her or to himself, but she could feel his gaze lingering on her. She tried to brush it off. "You must have me mistaken for someone else," she replied curtly, pushing the package across the counter to him. The man didn't reply immediately, instead just reaching into his coat pocket for a few coins. He placed them gently on the counter, and for a brief second, their fingers brushed. The touch was fleeting, but it made Lily's pulse race unexpectedly. She quickly pulled her hand away, trying to keep her composure. "I'll be on my way," the man said, taking the package of bread and meat. He hesitated before turning toward the door. "Thanks for the help." Lily watched him leave, the door closing softly behind him. She stood there for a moment, staring at the empty space he had left behind. The air around her felt heavier somehow, and she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this man than she realized. She had no reason to trust him. Not yet, but she had a feeling that in the coming days she would learn far more about him than she ever expected. As she closed up for the night, the mysterious cowboy lingered in her thoughts. Could he really be just another drifter? Or was there something, More? She had a sinking feeling that this man, with his quiet eyes and careful movements, might be about to change everything she thought she knew about her quiet little world.